I think best known for your time with the Packers. You won a Super Bowl here, Marshall. How you doing? Welcome back.
I'm doing great, man. It's a pleasure to be here. And as we were talking off air, it's good to see some Green Bay, Wisconsin folks. They've got a little Lambeau Field mock-up getting ready for the draft. It's been awesome. That caught my attention on the first day. I'm like, oh, man, this is going to be a fun week.
Yeah, it's been really fun, and I know you've probably been asked some Packers questions today. So you're doing the pregame power-up with Trey Wingo and others at DraftKings. So I'm sure you're talking about all the games, right? How much of the Packers did you watch this year? Did you find yourself noticing things and kind of keying on them?
Yeah, I watched quite a bit. You know, a lot of these big divisional matchups were key games between them and Detroit and Minnesota. You know, everyone was looking to see that would they take the next step in Jordan Love's career and a lot of these young guys. And there were a lot of bright spots, but, you know, as I mentioned a lot today, they're looking, and I think Josh Jacobs alluded to it, I would imagine the team doesn't love the way he said it,
sure.
But they're looking for closers, they're looking for veteran, experienced guys who, in those tight games, who's going to make a play to close the game out, whether it's a defensive end getting a sack, a linebacker making a tip, a DB making a pick, or the quarterback or receiver making a huge play. That is what separates where they are and where they want to go.
You had those guys in 2010. You had a bunch of them.
A bunch, yes.
On both sides of the ball. How quickly can young guys turn into players like that?
It can happen in an off season, but it just depends on development. It also depends on fit. And so, you know, I don't think everyone should be held to the same standard necessarily on when they come into their own. And so to a certain degree, some guys are who they are from the beginning. They've peaked or whatever the college experience was, but there's plenty of guys who develop, who we find out in year 4 or 5 become the best version of themselves, and maybe someone wrote them off before. So I think a lot of guys are on a different mental journey as far as their confidence and their position, but it just depends. And so, you know, that's a big part of evaluation, is not only after you draft guys and sign them, keeping up and developing them as they go through your program in the NFL, knowing that, you know, this is a business and guys come and go, but there's something to be said about a program that fosters these guys becoming their best self.
Becoming them, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 years into the league, they're on their own timeline. What I've been saying since Brian Gutekunst sent to your presser when he said, kind of unprompted, it's time to really try to contend for a championship. Like he didn't say it's time to be done being patient, but that's kind of how I heard it. And I think the Packers, maybe this offseason compared to the last two, they can't sit back and cross their fingers that some of those guys are going to turn into those players, right?
No, I don't think so. And, you know, 2 years ago was kind of a revelation. They found out that Jordan Love is the guy that they were hoping he could be. And then this year, I think, I still think it's a little bit of a disappointment. I think they thought they would be in the contention space, but what Gut knows, and a lot of the Packers fans know, is that this thing about windows, there's no guarantee you'll be back anywhere next year. You're looking at the Detroit Lions, who have been to 2 straight NFC championships and come away with nothing, and now their entire coaching staff is gutted. So there are no guarantees, and so the time is now. If you got guys that can go make a run, they've got to step up and be prepared to step up. And I think he was kind of not sounding the alarm, but making it known that, hey, we've got to go. And that's from the coaches onto the staff and the personnel and the players. So the NFL is not for long, and that goes with winning opportunities. You got to take advantage of the ones that are there. Even if maybe your team's not ready, you never know if you'll be back. Some guy gets hurt, something happens, and so there's no guarantees.
I think when you try to plan your window or your timeline, you can get into a little bit of trouble and probably miss an opportunity.
Yes.
Right? And so I think that's where the Packers are. Now, I never played football. I'll do my best to ask you a couple offensive line questions because I think you're a great resource, right? Watching the Packers this year, they did a lot of unique actions, right? Running out of the shotgun, which looks weird to fans, right? But they were really good at it. Spinner actions and fakes. As an offensive lineman, you know, is that different from some of the things that you were running with the Packers? What stood out about that team?
I mean, it's wholesale different than the stuff we were doing with Mike McCarthy, but I loved it. I stood up out of my seat the week that Malik had to start, and this the design from LaFleur. I was like, this is so creative, and it removed all the excuses from other play callers. Of this guy is limited or whatever. Right. It just takes a little bit more creativity and understanding of how defenses work and scheming and protecting your guys. And so would that have been an offense that would have worked every week with Malik Willis? Probably not. The NFL catches up to you, but they were incredibly called games, and that allowed the offensive line to flourish, allowed Josh Jacobs to flourish, and allowed Malik Willis to be the quarterback that just got you to a win with his skill set.
Yeah.
But now you extrapolate that to Jordan Love, you extrapolate that to anyone and other positions, and it's the coach's, play caller's job to put guys in the best position to win. And we hear that a lot, but I think a lot of people take that for granted. There's a lot of coaches who would I like my scheme. I want guys to fit my scheme. And it's like, no, guys are who they are. We talked about development, but where they are now in the present is who I need to scheme for, not the guy who I hope he is or think he could be. And the best coaches know how to do that on a week-to-week basis.
So you were with the Packers. You were coached by James Campen, who I've read and heard. Again, I've never played football. I wasn't on the beat or anything, but a guy who received a lot of praise and a lot of folks thought was very good. And then you were in New England later in the last year or two of Dante Scarnecchia's career. So you had some pretty good experiences with organizations known for good offensive lines, fostering and coaching good O-lines. What jumps out to you about those organizations? What do you circle when a team top to bottom, an organization can put together and coach an O-line? But what does that tell me about that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, specifically with the O-line, they have a way that they want to do things, and they've committed to that. But
they have a program.
They have a program in place, an idea of what they want, ideally. And the Green Bay program was, hey, we had a beat on drafting guys in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round with potential in a different, an unknown skill set, maybe. Guys like TJ Lang and Bakhtiari, who just other people were just like, he could be a guy. We're not sure. Green Bay's like, he could be our kind of guy. And so, New England in a similar fashion, guys who could get in there and Scar could really shape and mold in their program. And he's one of the best of all time. But such different styles. I mean, both coaching styles. Campy was a player. He coached more, less scheme and more, technique and energy.
The little things.
Well, just because he played center and he was really about the effort. I mean, we had whole periods knowing that how Aaron played at that time about not having a clock in your head with the protection of knowing that maybe he's extending stuff. So you got to not let your body get comfortable in that. And then, a guy like Scar in the run game, we were so precise. I mean, his individual periods are known for being some of the hardest ever. And I was thrust right into that from nothing. And so, but I understood right away. I was like, I get why they've been good for so long. Well, so they've got ideas of what they want.
Part of that building a program is part of that. We're going to draft a lineman maybe later in the draft and have time to coach them before immediately throwing them in. I feel like teams that are lesser and that have weaker lines, they're like, well, we're going to use our 1st round pick on a tackle and he's going to start day one. That's going to be our guy. Does that put a rookie in a spot that's disadvantageous?
Yeah, I mean, listen, offensive line, specifically tackles, that's a high learning curve. And some guys, they blend right in, but those are outlier guys. And so, yeah, you need some seasoning. You need opportunities to get reps. And, people talk about the offseason and the changes with the new CBA. There's less opportunities to get reps. And I understand that to a certain degree. The change they made for long-term health, and that's fine. But yeah, guys need time to get settled in. And some of these guys are 20, 21, 22, and their bodies are still like not in the peak of that they're going to be. And so that'll change too. But yeah, drafting guys, knowing what you want from them, and then giving them the infrastructure and the space and time to grow into that. If you have the patience and have the fortitude to kind of withstand that, then you're setting yourself up for long-term success.
So you played for 8 or 9 teams. We can wrap up with this, right? And I almost think this is a curse of being a player that's very good and very solid, but maybe not so excellent where a team is just going to, we want to pay you, right? So, and we've seen this with John Runyon Jr. in recent years with the Packers. I think we might see it with Josh Myers. Man, we love you, but go get money elsewhere because we think we can draft a guy cheap right behind you. So you play for all these teams. Is O-line a uniquely tough position to bounce around because continuity is so important, right? So it's got to be difficult. It has to prove how good you are to be able to jump into a new scene with new guys and a new coach every year.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just such a unit dependent thing.
It's the whole thing.
It's 5 guys who have to be gel and on the same page. And yeah, there are not many people who could have done what I've done on my journey. And I listen, I get like, yeah, you're totally right. And I'm okay with that. I think I had to go through some stuff to be like, all right, recognizing the reality of like what my value is and where do I fit, but like also seeing that I do have value and I can help teams win. And that led me to, signing 2 years with the Giants. And after that, going to the Raiders and signing with New England that year. And so I was a guy who, you could throw me in. Prime example was the New England year, 2019. I signed like week 2, week 3.
Yeah.
I signed my contract on a Wednesday morning. I go to walkthrough. The walkthroughs with Tom Brady or Crisp. I'm just thrown right in there. I'm in practice, full pads with Dante Scarnecchia. I want to pass out that day. But then by Sunday, I'm starting a right tackle for Tom Brady New England Patriots. I had to learn 150 code words. I'm sitting there with flashcards. I remember Josh McDaniels printed me out his little Waffle House menu call sheet. He gave me a copy of it so I pouring over it that whole night. I started right tackle on Sunday. Isaiah Wynn gets hurt. I got to flip to left tackle in the middle of the game. And I just got there on Wednesday. So there's not many people who could do that cognitively,
Agreed.
but also make your body do what's required of an offensive lineman. So it's very special, unique, and I understand that there's value in that. It took me a while to kind of grow into that, especially starting where I started. And, of course, everyone wants to be the stud left tackle who gets paid. And, I got to play with Clifton and then Bakhtiari and understand those guys are elite. But once I settled into all right, this is going to be my path. And I'm like, let me do this as best as I can.
Dropping into an offense led by Brady or Rodgers, I think some of these older school, it's hard to say old school because one's still playing and one just retired, but these are guys who have a million details along the line of scrimmage.
So nuanced.
They need and I feel like some newer offenses, it's dumbed down a little bit. And sometimes you hear some resentment from these old school quarterbacks, of all the stuff. So to be responsible for all of that on 4 days, I think that says a ton about the mental acuity, the mental side of playing O-line too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're dialing into just even I did NFL films while I was here, and the cadence, the rhythm of their cadence. Aaron is known as using his cadence as a weapon. Tom as well. Not only the code words in New England, we had 15 different snap counts that I had to oh man, okay, and then trying to find your advantage of when do I need to trigger my body to take off at the right time, so I'm giving myself a chance against Myles Garrett. And those are small little things that come with people being in systems for a long time, not really joining that week and figuring things out. And so it's not for everybody. That's a tough thing to do for sure. And I made a living out of that. So
it's funny when Aaron Rodgers is so good at the hard count. As an offensive lineman, I'd feel I'm a part of that.
It's hard on us too.
The group of the O-line plays such a big part because if they aren't dialed in, the quarterback can yell and bark all that he wants, but it's not going to work.
Yeah, or if you jump off sides, and I even got to the point later in my time in Green Bay where I was just being a savvy vet where I knew guys were keying it. I knew we're going on to that first round of Aaron's green 18. I had a little finger twitch, or I had a little thing where I'm trying to get him to jump off, knowing we have it built on our offense where Jordy Nelson's running a go. When they see that, we're pass blocking. That could be potential for a free touchdown. I want that. I mean, that makes us look better. That's another drive. We don't have to go and do things. So you start to figure those things out as you kind of in the system a little longer.
So you got the pregame power up. I know you're with the athlete advisory board as well. Is there anything else you need to promote? Anything I can help you with?
The Big 12 Alumni Council has been a lot of fun. I'm getting involved with college sports in that regard, and
cool.
Been calling some games. So on top of DraftKings, and continue to want to be part of info media, doing some stuff like that. So it's been fun. I'm just starting out. It's my first full year, so hopefully it grows and grows and grows.
Well, it was fun to talk O-line and to have a Packers Super Bowl champion on as well. Thank you, Marshall, for the time.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me.
We'll be back 3 minutes more after this.